But thank you for taking time tonight.
Oh,
It
thank you
means a
for
lot
inviting me.
to me and to the community. Like I said in the promo video for tonight, we really are trying to get people who worked in the medical field. Oh, geez, you did that. Can anybody else see? This is awesome. That was the best. That was the best
That's
ever. I
cool.
can't wait to get a screenshot of that. Um, we're really trying to get people who've worked in the medical field, medical community on, because a lot of times, a lot of us, we are on the receiving end of the medical, right? And we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And I don't want to make it look like you're in the position that you were the bad gatekeeper or anything like that. Excuse me, but you've been in the field enough and you've been around toxic providers and toxic caretakers.
Yeah.
And so you've seen how some of that kind of goes,
Well, I experienced
Plus,
myself. Yeah.
yeah, and you've experienced it because you're an invisible person too, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Plus, we want to pick your brain on when we were talking earlier today, like stuff like I feel a lot of people in my age group, let's say anywhere from 40 and up, may actually have some mental health issues like depression or anxiety or ADHD or be on the spectrum. But in our generation, that wasn't brought up a whole lot.
Yeah.
Um, it was he's just acting out because that's what teenagers do, or
Always what we
just
believe.
coming up with just weird just excuses, right? Instead of actual diagnoses. And even though we were never diagnosed, I think that depression follows pain or chronic illness or mental health, and then the chronic pain goes back to the depression, and it just feeds itself. And if we can't get grasps on it, or at least look at it, it's just going to continue to get worse. And if we have time tonight, I want to get to your thoughts on, could mental health issues, diagnosed or not, be preventing a patient from getting adequate care? Like, I know example, and I don't think I'm talking out of turn. We had a lady on a Thursday night who's on the spectrum, and for her, if she doesn't feel heard or acknowledged, it triggers her and it shuts her down.
Yeah.
But doctors don't realize that, so they don't make a point with her to meet her needs. They don't have to agree with her, just or do everything she wants, but just acknowledge, I hear you. And so
Yeah.
she that's a wall for her, if that makes sense. So
I think the wall for a lot of people. I had to learn that I'm my only advocate. So I'm a pretty assertive person to begin with, but I had to get more and more assertive through the whole process until I could get my doctors to actually listen to me. So,
yeah,
and I think part of it was that I was female, because when I asked the doctor why he didn't believe me after a few years, he said, "Well, you just weren't bitchy enough."
yeah,
Well, I wish you
yeah.
would have told me that 4 years ago. I could have totally flipped the switch on that.
Right, but do I have to be a bitch to be in pain?
Right? Yeah.
um, and then he didn't listen to me again when I was in the most pain I'd ever been in. And I demanded an MRI. And he's like, "Oh, I think we're jumping the gun." And I'm like, "No, you haven't ever seen me crying hysterically in your office before. I need an MRI." And he did order it. And then he was apologizing to me a week later, because my L5S1 had completely ruptured and slipped. So, yeah.
Real quick before we really get started, general guidelines on any live that we do. I unfortunately have seen lives where they don't put these out there every time in a good sideways. Number one, no politics, please no politics tonight. We can talk about the government and the FDA and the DEA and what they're doing to us, but Democrat, Republican, Independent, all the stuff like that, please keep that to other channels. I can point you to 10 gazillion here on this app that are designed for that. So let's just take this let's take this as time for ourselves and our community. Number two, no drama llamas. We don't need drama. We have enough drama in what we fight every single day. So let's try to keep that to a minimum. And just so, again, maybe all of us can walk away from here with something that'll help us be a little bit more successful, either with a doctor or a family member or a friend, and help us do better or be better, for tomorrow. Everybody here is seen, heard, and loved. And if you have comments, put them down there. I keep an eye on them. I know Amanda keeps an eye on them. We have Valerie here keeping an eye on them. We have Dixie keeping an eye on them. So be you tonight. Just take a moment and be you is all I would say. So everybody knows me. Everybody knows that the only license I have is to drive a vehicle in the state of Texas. So don't take anything I say as medical advice or instructions or anything like that. This is when I talk about my personal experiences. And that's what everything's based on. Amanda, you want to introduce yourself? Everybody knows that you're late. Besides that.
Wow, we met our goal already. You got to reset that.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
You guys rock.
My name's Amanda. I am a 14-year legacy pain patient. Learning how to advocate for myself has been the most important thing that I've found. Recently found my unicorn doctor for pain management, and now I'm here with Keith, and we're trying to help you guys feel less alone and have a safe place to be yourselves.
There you go. And Dana, would you like to give us a little bit of your experience in the med field? And I mentioned a little bit that you are also an invisible person. So give us a quick bio of what makes you invisible. And I don't mean when I say you're invisible, don't take that as a slight. It's actually a sign of love and care, because we all are,
Right.
So
I have a few invisible illnesses. I do have major depression recurrent and generalized anxiety disorder. And then I also have chronic pain with a lot of spinal issues. But I was a social worker. I'm not now. I'm not licensed. But I was a social worker for over 20 years. I worked primarily with the homeless, mentally ill, who quite often had SUD and were involved in the criminal justice system.
okay.
So
Cool.
A lot of community mental health agencies.
Yeah.
I don't know how I missed that you'd worked with the homeless, and it was funny. I wanted to talk to you today on the phone so we could talk about tonight, but we both got on the homeless tangent like in no time flat, and it was so cool sharing experiences from. I mean, you're in Michigan. I was in Vegas, but it's the same.
Yep.
And
That was the
I
best
am going to talk.
day.
Oh yeah, and guys, there is nothing quite fulfilling as have somebody that doesn't have a roof give you a hug and tell you thank you, or that they love you. When somebody who has nothing honestly tells you that, I cried so many times when that happened. So anyway, we'll do it. We can do a whole live on that one night. I'd love to.
I could talk
would be
about
awesome.
that for hours.
Yeah. So let's do mental health, and then we'll kind of bring SUD into that. Is that okay? Like I was talking earlier, I think that there's a lot of people in the invisible community that, whether they're diagnosed or not, have characteristics of different mental health situations, depression, anxiety, maybe even being on the spectrum, right? Neurodivergent. And you shared with me something I kind of thought, I didn't know this, that women, as a general rule, are less diagnosed, or how did you word that to me on the phone today?
It's harder to diagnose women with ADHD because they present differently. They tend to keep inside their head more. And it seems like males are more on the hyperactive end, which you can actually see and visualize.
Right.
Okay. So when I'm just going to say when ladies have ADHD, in your experience, what signs did you see that kind of would clue you in that they may be dealing with it? I mean, I know it wasn't your job to have the official doctor diagnosis, but I guess what I'm asking is, if somebody hasn't been diagnosed, what are some things that, like, with being on the spectrum, people process, like, I process things different than what a general population person would do, right? But you don't know that until somebody helps you figure that out, right? Or people don't know what depression. I guess how do we define depression? How would you define depression? So somebody hasn't been diagnosed with depression.
Well,
How would you just define it? I guess.
there's so many variants to the severity of it. Originally, like, I was diagnosed with dysthymia, which was a low-grade depression, that eventually turned into major depression. I don't think dysthymia is in the DSM-5, though. It was in the DSM-4 as well. But depression, is feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. There's a lack of motivation, a lack of energy. You don't feel good about yourself. You may think you're a burden to other people around you. You're crying a lot, you're sleeping a lot, you're eating a lot, or you're not eating at all, or sleeping at all. Or, it just depends on the person.
But does anybody else, Amanda, or anybody that's here tonight, do you see how having a chronic illness or living with chronic pain, how we feel a lot of that?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
Right.
you have to look at, and I did do a video on it, and I think I have it pinned, but, this whole process is trauma-based, because we go from living in a huge, big world, to where all of a sudden we are in a room and a bed, and our world has shrunk incredibly. And, every aspect of your life has been affected. So, yes, pain and depression go hand in hand, and it can be a very vicious cycle.
Right. It can be. And then when you add in signs of anxiety, and I think if you took a survey, the vast majority of us, invisible, have tremendous anxiety going to a doctor's appointment.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I think a lot of times, when you see, or I've been told this, that when you see like a major depression and generalized anxiety together, quite often that person has PTSD from having gone through traumatic circumstances. So medical trauma fits that.
Right. Yeah. And I'm just going to go ahead and just bring it up now. Trauma leads a lot to self-medication as well. And,
Especially when you're going to.
Yeah. So if you're dealing with an illness or pain or depression, and you're getting gaslit, or you're not getting the care that you need, you search for other things to take that break to remove the pain, or to forget about the pain, or to forget about whatever. And I don't fault people in a lot of ways, because it's difficult in the situation that we get put in.
Yeah,
And
the people I worked with on the street were duly diagnosed with mental health and SUD. And quite often they were just self-medicating with whichever substances that they were using.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
quite
And it's common. And then if it comes out and your doctor finds out about it, and then you get tagged, and I don't know of a polite way to put it to put it besides tagged or labeled SUD. That throws up even more barriers at times for people to getting the care they need. And it hurts me to know that people are being labeled like that. So if a person hasn't had the diagnosis, and Amanda, I'm asking you this question as well as you, Dana, and everybody else that's here. If somebody hasn't been officially diagnosed with depression, or somebody hasn't been officially diagnosed with anxiety, or a myriad of other things, how do we approach that with a medical person without any fears of retribution? Because when to give you an example, I went to see my therapist for the first time last week, right? Mm-hmm. And I was paranoid. She knows I see a pain doctor. She knows I have a good PCP, but she doesn't know who they are. Right. I'm paying cash. I'm paying cash right now when she's already run my insurance and my insurance will pay it. But I don't trust the wall for United Healthcare to keep that away from my pain doctors. Right. And so that's that's an electronic, literally a wall I'm having to put up still. Now, eventually, after I deal with her for a period of time, that wall may come down, but I'm still paranoid about that. So, y'all, do you have suggestions on how you bring it up to your doctors, or is that something that you hold in? And I'm not trying to call anybody in the carpet. This is just something I just kind of popped in my head.
I had chronic pain now for 15 years. So that started way before this opioid epidemic. And I've always been forthright about having depression and anxiety. So my doctors are all aware of it. I think, as far as, I don't know how much they can see in the state systems as far as your pharmacology, like what you're being prescribed.
Right.
But I know they definitely can see any addictive substance in there. And then each state is going to have their own idea of what an addictive substance is. So, like Cymbalta is primarily an antidepressant. I'm on Cymbalta. But some people or doctors will think that that's an addictive substance, just like that lady from last week.
Yeah, we did a video on.
Yeah. So, but it's also used for pain, not well, but they try to use it for pain.
Just like they try to use amitriptyline for pain, as well. And that's what they try to give me that. So, I was just curious to see, because I have a feeling I'll give my therapist their names sooner or later. I'm blessed with my doctor, his practice. They do PT. He has a paid chiropractor. He has a paid masseuse. They're bringing in a therapist inside the practice. They're bringing in a dietitian inside the practice, right? And because they're wanting to be patient-centered care. And so the therapist will talk to you go in knowing the therapist is going to talk to the doctor, so the doctor knows where you're at, and I think that can be a good thing. But at the same time, it is just so flipping scary, because we've all had horror stories about doctors, right? Like Bobby had this comment that just totally blows me away. She said, "I was told to get married and have a child. That would help my pain. A woman doctor told her that." This is the madness that we're up against, you know? And so talk about me not wanting to tell my doctor that I'm seeing a shrink. That kind of stuff scares the crap out of me, you
Well,
know?
there's a lot of stigma on both ends with, you know, mental health, with chronic pain, and with SUD. So you've got to try and gauge which doctors are thinking in which way before you want to sign releases of information and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Always be on your toes, you know? And it's, again, though, it's hard sometimes because, especially for you ladies, when they're using ACE or childhood trauma, and they're throwing that in your face for a reason not to treat you. And so you're already starting off on a non-honest working relationship. Does that make sense?
And, you know, there are so many people who had childhood trauma.
Yeah.
I know way more people who had childhood trauma than had this perfect life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was interesting when I was getting PT today. The guy that does it is actually a chiropractor, a full-blown doctorate in chiropractor. And I was telling him about this live tonight, and he was really freaked out that I do a live and it's nothing but for people who are invisible, right? I mean, he was pleasantly surprised. And ACE came up, and he's young. He's like, I don't know, maybe I call him young. He's like 40, right? And for a split moment, he started to defend it and saying that they're getting away from that and stuff. And I just looked at him and I was like, dude, I pulled out my phone and I'm like, and I went to open TikTok. I'm like, do you want to read some of the comments, some of the messages I get from people? Mm-hmm. And he's like, so you're saying this is still going on? I go, this goes on to this date. And he was just mind blown. And then I sat down on the bench and he sat down in a chair across from her, and we talked about when they're bringing this therapist in. Thank you for the hat. I feel like I'm at home. Wait, I am at home. I was like, you need to really be careful, because a lot of us who've been through this system, we're not going to tell you everything off the front, and they're not going to want to talk to a therapist, right? If they know, that's going to go right back to the doc over here. And it turned out to be really positive, but just scares me, the sharing of that information.
And this is a scary time for, I mean, Tennessee has actually passed a law that a person can't be prescribed opioids if they have a history of depression. To me, that's
crazy.
Yeah, I wanted to retire there. Now I can't. But
no, I mean, here I am thinking Texas is bad. I mean, I was born in Nashville. I love Tennessee. It's got some really cool stuff to it. No state income tax as well. But at the same time, the logic behind this type of stuff is just non-existent. Even if there's money involved, who's making the money off of it? If there's got to be a drug company somewhere that's making something off of it, or a facility somewhere that's making money off of that, because it doesn't do anything. It's nothing positive. I'm sorry. It just throws me for a loop.
Yeah, it's frustrating because, I mean, everybody's a human.
Yeah.
And
do you feel like it's affected your level of care throughout the last 15 years being open about having depression and anxiety?
I don't think it has.
That's
for
good.
me, but I mean, I have experienced the stigma of having a mental illness before, especially with my old coworkers.
Yes.
But I think I'm lucky. I've been with my pain doctor, and it took me a long time to kind of train them
Mhm.
But I've been with them for 13 years now.
Wow.
So again, this was before this whole crisis started.
Right.
And I did get a new general practitioner 2 years ago, but I was up front with her, and she was fine with it. And she now prescribes my psych meds because my psychiatrist went and retired. So, but she has also no problems prescribing pain medication for people as well. So.
I'm sorry, she isn't, or she does prescribe pain medication.
She's
She will.
prescribed, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
But I'm trying
Did
to
you-
keep the two worlds separate for myself. So
Yeah.
did you ask her if you can clone her though?
Right. Send her out to
I hate doctors, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people share my opinion on that. But the last primary care physician I had was horrible. And I didn't go to a primary care physician for 10 years because they were so bad. I found this unicorn primary care physician, and I'm sticking with her. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I try not to rag on doctors as much as I can, because I do know there are some good ones out there. I have a good PCP now. I am blessed, and you did a video, Dana, talking about it's okay to share share that stuff, those victories, which made me feel better sharing it. But there are some nightmares. Personally, for me, Dr. Israel Pena, Granbury, Texas. I got a little drink. Thank you. You guys are killing it tonight. I appreciate it. Dr. Israel Pena, Granbury, Texas, nearly destroyed me. He came damn near close to destroying me.
I was watching you during that. Yeah.
And then I had a lady message me tonight. She lives in Washington State. She had to reschedule her appointment. And so she called to do that and was informed on the phone that she's no longer a patient.
Oh my God.
And they wouldn't tell her on the phone why. It's just, you're no longer a patient. We can't reschedule you. And so she's like, what do I do? I'm like, well, go get your I go, number one, call your PCP. Try to get into your PCP like as soon as you can, because you're going to need help trying to cover your pain meds. But number two, go get the records out of that doctor's office and find out what they have in there. And it turns out he dropped her. The reason in the records was she had requested early refills twice in the last year because she was going to be out of town on the refill date. And that was his reasoning for dropping her on paper. But we talked for a little bit while longer. She said, but what the real reason is he wanted her to get a nerve stimulator. And she told him no. And so he found his reason to drop her.
Yeah.
So when at one side, I'm trying to be nice and show doctors some love because a lot of doctors deserve it. On the other side, I hear horror stories like that happened today. Right? Yep. And it's hard for me to show a lot of love, even though I really want to. And like when Dr. Mike's on next week, I respect him. At least he's here to face the music, right? Yeah. Where a lot of doctors like Israel Pena will hide, they'll hide.
And Dr. Mike has chronic pain himself. So he actually gets it. Whereas I don't think any of my doctors have ever had chronic pain. So
I don't.
And it's one of those things, unless you've had it, you don't understand it.
You don't. And this new pain doctor I've had, the very first time I met him, I just gently mentioned, because he's asking why I was leaving. And I didn't want to throw Dr. Pena under the bus at that time. And I just gave some very generic things. And I said, plus I'm dealing with medical PTSD, to be honest with you, because I wanted him to know everything as much as I could tell him before we hit a brick wall. And he goes, I understand exactly what you mean with that. And I'm like, huh? You're a doctor. he had gotten in an accident like 2 years before in an ER, and the ER people treated him like trash. They wouldn't give him pain meds. He like broke his leg or something, and they weren't giving him meds and stuff like that. And he's like, I still mentally deal with that. So when you tell me you have medical PTSD, I understand it. And it was at that moment I told him I would have his baby if he would take me on as a patient. Okay. Because he gets it, right?
Right.
Because he gets it.
The doctor that actually gets it is
Is what it is. Yeah.
But also learning how to talk to your doctors and kind of fill them out too is really important. I got lucky with mine, but mine likes to talk about everything that I like to talk about. So
that's good.
You know? So, so when we talk about substance use disorder, and the stigma that it carries, and we talk about mental health issues and the stigma that it carries. Just as a human who's worked with people that have those diagnoses, I don't know. Is there other ways that we can approach our doctors, you think? And if you don't know, just say, Keith, I don't know. And try to explain ourselves, maybe, or our side of the story. I think, to me, like we just were talking about, SUD, it's quite often is trauma-based, right? And if we can deal with that trauma, I think sometimes the SUD issues, I'm not saying they're all going to go away. I'm not saying that. But I think that the tendency might lessen. All right. I know with me it did. But is there, do we just walk in and say, hey, I'm dealing with some mental issues and I'm SUD as well. Can you please help me? Is that really I got a hat again. Thank you. Is that really just personal experience, just personal thoughts? Not.
I think, and I guess it depends what doctor you're going to for what. If you're just talking about going to a pain doctor, I just prefer to be honest personally. But I know that's a little risky at this point too. I think it is important for a doctor to know if there's been a substance use disorder issue. Because that way they can monitor it more closely. It's also important to find the right doctor, especially in that circumstance, because a lot won't treat someone who's had a substance use.
Right. They won't, But, there are a lot of doctors that won't treat us because we're complicated, Right. That's it's just, that goes back to a really old video I made, talking about how a lot of doctors are like really bad volunteer firemen, and because the really bad volunteer firemen really just want to go rescue kittens from a tree because it's fun and it's exciting and they get their picture in the paper. And it's like doctors are a lot like that when they write blood pressure medicine or insulin or boner pills, that it's a good feeling because they're making somebody feel better. But when you present that volunteer fireman, say, hey, we got to go put a 2-story ranch house or put a ranch house out that's on fire. We got to go. And they're like, they freak out and they quit because that's not rescuing kittens. And it's like these doctors, and you approach them and you have multiple health issues, they freak out. Like that poor lady that got dropped, because she wouldn't have a nurse simulator, and they give up. And and I get it. They have 10 gazillion people knocking on their door wanting help. And so it's easy to drop a difficult patient and go on to the next,
But I think in this world today, so many people are complicated. So
yeah,
I had a thought that just went out of my head. I did go blank.
It's okay. I do that all the time. You're fine.
I'm almost 60. It happens.
I don't even blame it on age
It
anymore.
happens to me.
I blame it on just because that's who I am, you know. But somebody said, "How do we change? How do we make changes?"
As far as like talking to the doctors and being honest and that, I think it's a matter of finding that right doctor, and that can be hard and it can be a search. Or it's a matter of working with the doctor you have, knowing you might not get a lot of fast progress, but eventually you might get there.
Yeah.
The first pain clinic I went to was horrible. And I walked out and went to back to my primary care physician and said, I need a new pain clinic. I will not go back there. They're horrid. And she's like, oh, I don't know of any more. I'm like, really? In the whole county, you don't know of another pain clinic?
Wow.
Yeah. So I had to wait a year, and they had some kind of luncheon with this new pain clinic. They weren't really new, but new to her. And so she referred me there. They were a lot better than the previous one, and I didn't want to look like I was doctor hopping. So I felt too afraid to go try and find another one, even though I wasn't completely happy with what they were doing. But I learned to become much more assertive. And I just remembered my thought. As a social worker, I had to deal with a lot of doctors in different phases, taking my clients to different specialties and things. So I was always really good at dealing with doctors and understanding that typically they want, the medical information. They don't want to waste their time hearing something that isn't related to what you're talking about. But, when you have pain and depression and possibly SUD, there's a lot of issues that go into that. And people just aren't a one diagnosis stop. We're people, we're complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I want to let everybody that's here, that's watching the live, when we say you need to find a new doctor or it's time to find a new doctor, the people who are saying that have gone through that process and know what it's like and know that it's not easy and know that it's difficult and it's heartbreaking and it's frustrating. And I could go on. You can go through my profile and see all the videos I've done about talking about trying to find a good doctor. So when we say it, you need to try to find somebody else. We're not saying that flippantly. We're not saying that as it's just go find Billy Bob Doctor Pain Clinic. He'll take care. We know that's not going to happen. We know that. When we say that, though,
hard, it wouldn't be worth it.
Right, as an encouragement to try. Like when I left Pena, I knew how shitty he was, so I knew what not to accept at the next doctor I was interviewing.
Right.
Because I'm already shitty here. Why am I going to take shitty if I go over here? And and address it. Please address it as an interview. You don't have to take that doctor on as your doctor when you go and talk to him. You'll probably know within the first 3 to 5 minutes as if he's the right one for you. And the biggest thing I would suggest, and we actually did a live on this last night, was if you are visiting doctors and interviewing them, unless they're going to be somebody you want to work with, if they offer, do not take a prescription.
They don't
because
sign a paid contract either.
and don't sign a paying contract with them either. Right? Don't do if you're not sure, don't do either one of those, because that will show that you are. If you go to 3 different doctors and they're nice enough to offer you like a temporary script, that shows you people will think you really are med seeking in a bad way when you know you're not, but that's going to reflect.
Right. Like pain doctors, it's different than other doctors. Like other doctors just want to hear strictly what's related to the medical issue. But if you do that with pain doctors, they don't necessarily believe you. And what they need to hear is, how is your life being affected by this pain? It wasn't until I approached my doctors from the sense of, at what point do I get a quality of life? This is what my day is like. This is, if I take my pill I take my pill in the morning to get up and take a shower. And then I lay in bed for the rest, I might be able to get one thing done, but then that pill's out and I only got 2 pills a day. So for most of the day, I couldn't do anything. And then I would take the pill at night so I could sleep.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't do housework. I can't even walk across my house. I can't do dishes. I can't stand and cook. I can't, do just basic ADLs, activities of daily living. That's at the point when they did increase my medication. So,
and yeah, 2 things on that. I just did a reply to a lady who was asking about how to ask for an increase, and that's one thing I was trying to get across, and I haven't heard if it worked or not. Was not say, hey, I need more pain meds. Say, hey, I can't do this anymore. I can't take my dog for a walk anymore because it's my leg. It's just, it's not right. Or I can only do 2 showers a week because I can't stand for 15, 20 minutes. Give them real life examples of what's not working for you.
exactly.
My question though, and I don't know, maybe if somebody who's here in the comments, what approach would work for, say, a gastro specialist or for a neurologist, or because I don't know. And is it different? I wonder when you go talk to those guys or those ladies or those doctors. I'm not trying to be gender mean or anything. I don't know.
I think it can help, but they really tend, in my experience, they tend to be more focused on the medical issue. And then there's tests that they can do to test those things. A pain scale isn't really a test. It's objective, opinion.
The pain scale it varies with every single person on the planet. And I've tried to tell people that too. Try to avoid the pain scale and saying, I can't do this anymore. Or if the doctor's demanding a pain scale, okay, doc, what is an 8 for you? And then once I know your definition of an 8, then I can tell you where I'm at, because then we can relate. Because I need to know what your definition is, so I know that we're on the same page. Because if your 8 is you're still able to go snow skiing, that's not an 8 for me. Okay, so we need to get some kind of correlation and understanding, and to do that. I hate the pain scale.
I tell people, like, when I gave birth, to me that was a 10, but giving birth is now down to a 6. With the pain that I've experienced, that's gone up to a 10. So even our own pain scales change over time depending on our experiences.
Right. Yeah, they do. They do. And how many videos have we seen on TikTok of people in the emergency room when you tell them that you're a 12 and they're like, that doesn't exist, or you wouldn't be able to have walked in here if you were in that much pain or whatever. That's why I really, even with my new doc, I try to avoid the numbers, so because we need to get a better understanding. So we got way in the weeds about be careful. It's going to be a difficult time trying to find a new doctor, right? But we get it. We get it. It's, I don't tell people they have to find a unicorn. Just find somebody better. You know,
Right.
that's
And
and a good sign
you
to
want to work with them. I mean, I've had to work with these doctors for a long time, and I've considered for a long time leaving this particular practice. But the one I was thinking of going to, I actually took a friend there for her rhizotomy, and I just had my rhizotomy a few months before that, and I didn't like how they did hers. You know, with mine, they do it all at once, and I don't get knocked out. They, you know, sedate me, but I'm not knocked out. And
Right.
there, she had to come in for one side and then come back 2 weeks later for the other side. And
Wow.
they did put her under, and you know that. And then I was seeing like how it was more of a business structure than it was a medical facility. And I
for those that don't know, rhizotomy, that's also a nerve ablation. That's when they go in and burn your nerves. Correct?
yeah,
Okay. Just a different term for it. Now, when I had mine done, the temporary nerve blocks they did for it, for the insurance company to make sure it was going to work, most of those I was somewhat sedated, or at least not completely knocked out, somewhat knocked out. Had to have a driver take me home. One of those I wasn't, because I just didn't have the opportunity for a driver, just went and toughed it out. But when they actually burned them, and they burned the first time, it was 7, 8, thoracic 7, 8, and 8, 9. They burned both sides.
yeah.
But they knocked me out. I wasn't given a choice. And I didn't really care, because I don't trust my body enough to not flinch if I'm awake, because I'm a wimp. But yeah, that clinic was a business. It was just, they just wheeled you in, knocked you out, did their thing, and wheeled kept on wheeling, you know.
I don't like to get knocked out, and I have a very high pain tolerance. So all the steroid injections I've had and everything, I've been calm for all of that, and they don't bother me. So the first time they did the nerve ablation, they had me take 2 benzos and 2 Percocet, and I was loopy, and I don't like that feeling. So the next time I cut some of that, and time after that I cut quite a bit. So I was, for my 3rd rhizotomy, I was very alert. And unfortunately, that did make my leg kick involuntarily. But I was fine with them burning the nerve while I was, you know, fully alert. I didn't have a problem with that.
I just
You're
can't do it.
Yeah.
I just can't. That's why we're all different, right?
Yeah.
I can't look at needles either. Like, or when I get blood drawn, I have to look the other way. I just can't.
I have to watch
Yeah.
it.
No, you're
And they
weird.
hide the needles from you too when they do those steroid injections. And after I'd had several, I'm like, so I really want to see what this needle looks like. And they're like, yeah, you know, they're big. And I'm like, yeah, but I've gotten so many. What does it matter? You know,
Yeah.
they did show
Yeah.
me. I'm like, oh, that is pretty big. Okay, but
No. They wouldn't need to knock me. They wouldn't need anesthesia, because I'd be out. Barely, because I would pass out. I would definitely pass out, you know. So before we go on, if anybody has questions for Dana or for me or for Amanda, just start throwing them in, you know, because I want to make sure you guys know that we see you guys. It's hard for me to sometimes try to catch up on the comments, because they come really, really fast, you know. Shelly, I've seen your videos. Disease ruined my career, but you're still a nurse. Dana, you talk about in some of your videos about how it took away, that losing your social work and losing your time on the streets with people was extremely devastating.
That
And
is absolutely the worst part of my pain journey was losing my career. I loved what I did. And I think you could probably tell that from my voice today when we were talking earlier.
oh yeah,
I loved it. It was a passion. It was something that I was meant to do. And I couldn't figure out why it was taken away. That was it's still a question I have. But I absolutely loved it. And it's taken me until to replace that passion by doing the pet sitting, because I love animals as much as I loved working with homeless, mentally ill, SUD, criminal justice involvement people.
Yeah.
I love the very tough clients in inner cities that have been considered some of the most dangerous in the country. So I loved that. But I love animals. And I've had to just accept I can't do the social work as much as I would like to. I just can't do it. And working with animals has brought joy back to me and a purpose. So that has really been helpful. And I didn't expect that. But I'm happy that that has happened.
Yeah, we did a live 2-3 weeks ago where we talked about the stages of grief when we get diagnosed. And that was one of the most difficult lives that we've done, I think, because that's something that hits everybody, and you have to find something to replace it. And not only for me did I have to find something to replace it, I had to find something that my body in its current state would allow me to do.
Right.
And that is very, very difficult. Like you, I'd love to be back on the streets in Vegas right now. I would love to show up and get hugs and to be part of that community again, because it's some of the most genuine people I've ever met. But I just can't do it. We were cooking meals. Like we would get we'd serve Chick-fil-A. We had a Chick-fil-A that donated, like if they didn't sell it within 3 minutes, they'd deep freeze it and hold it for us. So it was still good, right?
Oh.
We would serve over 200 people, almost 250 people a week, just on donations from a week from one store. Okay. So for a Wednesday, we would prep enough of that food, reheat it, process it, do all the stuff to it, make gallons of coffee and lemonade to serve 125 to 150 people every Wednesday morning.
That's awesome.
And then load the van and then go out to serve on the streets and then come home and then clean the mess up in the house, right? There's no way I could do that right now. There's no way I could do that right now. But all of us have to figure out what we can do, you know. You're working with pets now, which is awesome. I love dogs, if you couldn't tell. But that's the $64,000 question. Amanda got a chicken on her head.
15 years to find it. So that was a long time to figure out what was going to give me passion and joy back into my life. So,
you know, but you got to find something, you know, whether it's coming on lives, whether it's getting on TikTok, or whether it's getting on the dreaded Book of Face, you know, and get involved in the community that way. Listening to somebody, you know, sometimes is all they're asking for. They're not looking for an answer for everything. They're just looking for somebody just to listen. Whatever we can do, you know, find comfort, I guess is really kind of what I was trying to get to.
I don't think we've touched on this yet, but people shouldn't be afraid to go talk to a therapist or find some group therapy or something to talk about their depression and anxiety. That can be extremely helpful. And I know that there's a lot of controversy about cognitive behavioral therapy. I think if you're going for the right reason, it can be exceptionally helpful, but it's not going to cure pain.
Right.
Can you explain cognitive behavior therapy, please?
Basically, the premise is that in order to change a behavior, or your actions are based on your beliefs, which affect your thoughts, which affect your feelings, and the outcome of your actions, or the actions and then that outcome. The first place you can put an intervention in is your thoughts. Your beliefs are so ingrained you don't necessarily even know what they are. So the first place to intervene is with your thoughts, and to find out where you may have some thinking errors. And then to try and change those thinking errors, which is very helpful with depression. If I'm sensing myself going into a depression, it's like, okay, I need to change my thought patterns here, or I will end up sitting on this couch for a month, and not having any energy or motivation, and everything's going to fall apart. So, I have to look at what might be causing that. I know tools I can put into place for it, such as like meditation, progressive muscle relaxation, deep breathing. Just getting up and getting outside can be helpful. Walking in nature, whatever helps you. It has to be what works for you.
Right.
But so you take that thought, you change it, you're going to feel differently about it.
Right.
It's going to affect your outcome, which will be getting you off the couch, basically. So that's what the premise of it is.
Okay.
So that's
I've been doing CBT for 6 years now, and it really has changed so much in my life. I really am thankful that I started doing it.
Yeah.
It hurts my heart when people really talk down about it, because yes, it hasn't taken away my pain, but getting control over my depression and anxiety has lessened my pain.
Yes.
And I think that's really what we have to go for. What we have to aim for is lessening the intensity of our pain, because we're never going to be fully out of pain. And that's another thing that I really had to struggle to realize too, is that I just have to find a level of pain that I can function in. I'm never going to be completely out of pain, for a very long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But, if it's manageable and it's not affecting your mental health, then that's really the goal.
Sorry. Doug
You're fine.
knocked everything down.
No worries. No worries. Well, dogs tend to make an appearance on our lives quite often. So Amanda, when she was doing hers a few Thursdays ago, she had both of her dogs fighting on the bed, and it was like we were threatening to start putting money on which one was going to win, because it was that entertaining. Admittedly, tomorrow is like my first official therapy visit. I had put my name in months ago when I was so in dark places with Dr. Israel Pena for the way he was treating me, that I started just reaching out, and I got put on a waiting list for this therapist, and had kind of forgotten about it, because I'd get a text once a month. You're still on the list. Do you still want to stay on the list? I'm like, sure, why not? This is never going to happen. And then she texted out of the blue, you're up. I'm like, well, I guess I got to go do this now. And so last week was just general basic information. So we start this stuff tomorrow, but I'm going to do it. I want to get through. I don't think I'll ever satisfy or get past the medical PTSD, but I want to understand it better, and I want to be able to handle it better. And
Yeah.
That will help you to rethink things. I mean, it got to the point where I was so frustrated I didn't know what to do, and it hit me that she probably doesn't know what my life is. And once I brought that up, that changed everything for me.
yeah,
So, but there are doctors who tell you to do CBD because CBT because it's going to cure your pain. No, it's not going to do really much for your pain. It's great though for the depression and the anxiety.
yeah, yeah.
And
So that's why I'm going. I want to give it a shot, right? And if it works with the PTSD, then we'll get back into the childhood stuff and all of the garbage. But I have a feeling it's all going to come out at the same time anyway. I mean,
cognitive behavioral therapy focuses more on the here and now, and not so much go into the past. And people with childhood therapy, there are schools that say yes, do deep psychotherapy about it, and there are others that are it's not necessarily the right thing to go digging in the brain for that. That to deal with the emotions and things that come from that. So CBT sorry, it's late.
it's all right.
Cognitive behavioral therapy is going to keep you in the here and now, as far as having you take a look at those thoughts and then be able to, change the way you're thinking that you have been doing since you were a child, and then give you better emotion, be better emotionally equipped, and then be able to change the behavior to get to the behavior that you would prefer. Because we can be self-destructive very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can when you take in all of the garbage that comes with this, right? Thursday, Jolene's going to be here, and one of the things, when she's got a horrific story, and I can't wait for her to share it. But one of the things she wants to talk about is if we have a spouse or a partner, how our condition affects that relationship, and how they often step up, and how we kind of need to recognize that, even though where we're at the time is a bad spot, which is, I've tried doing that with Valerie. I've tried to be, listen, I'm in a bad spot, and and when I say that, she knows that means my fuse is extremely short, and but I'll still blow up, even though no matter how hard I try not to, So I'm looking forward to that part of that conversation on Thursday night. And I'm glad she's going to bring it up, because it's not talked about a whole lot. I would love to I told her I would love to have her husband on a Tuesday night as a spokesperson for the partner or the caretaker community.
Yeah.
Not to make
talked about is the kids. If you're, whether you're married or not, single parent, but how it affects the children as well. Because I went through this as a single mom and it started when my son was like 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. So, half his childhood was me not being able to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Kids have only known me in pain. I literally got in my accident when I was pregnant with my daughter, my first daughter, and she's about to turn 13. So I've been, but good for the best for them, really.
Yeah. Hippie grandma said, what happens when both spouses are gimps? You're talking to one of them. I'm one, I'm on disability, and so is Valerie. And for us, we tend to, as much as I can be short tempered and short fused, I can read her disease like the back of my hand. Like when she has temporary paralysis is what she deals with, and 99% of the time I can detect a situation coming on before she can, just in the way her body movement starts and stuff like that. And I'll be like, hey, did you take any potassium? And she's like, really, do I need to? I'm like, yeah, you need to go take some. And sure enough, she'll have it. I think we're blessed that we can do that for each other.
Definitely.
And a lot of times I won't tell her that I'm feeling like crap. But she'll know, she'll call me on it. I've gotten better about being vocal, Hippie, to her when I am struggling, instead of trying to hide it. And I hope that helps. I don't know if Valerie's still around. She can answer that question or not for herself. I hope that I'm not trying to be vocal because I'm bitching. I'm vocal because I want her to know, hey, I'm in a shitty spot,
Right.
you know, and I'm doing my best. The meds aren't working, or I can't take any more meds yet. So this is going to be this way for a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? So
Communication is key.
I do the same thing with my son. He might think, it's time to be funny, and I'm like, you just need to leave me alone until my pill kicks in.
yeah.
Just leave me alone. So
Yeah. So that'll be Thursday night, y'all. So sorry, but we're going to go deep into that on Thursday night.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about having you on tonight, Dana. We've gotten to cover things. I follow a ton of other pain folks, and on their lives is just really complaining about the doctors and the bad treatment. And that does have its place. And it does feel good to vent that and to get it out, because we can't keep it in. It's a poison. We have to get it out.
valid.
But when you can come, it is valid. But when we have people like you who have experience in this stuff, not just lived experience, which is important, but practical experience, right? We want to go these conversations to try to help people, to let even deeper validation than just, I have a crappy doctor too, because
and pain and depression and anxiety are so connected. They really are. And I think that was one of the first videos I did was about the trauma, and how all of that ties into each other. Because nobody ever tells you this is trauma.
Right.
They're not going to tell you. You're going to be feeling depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. Most of the people just kind of disappear. But even the professionals, unless it's like the Dr. Mike who has gone through it, they're not going to be able to tell you mentally what you're going to experience.
No, they're not. They're not. And it's so tough trying to find a provider that has experienced it. But even if we can't find a provider that has experienced it, I would settle for a provider that actually listened to me.
Right. Mm-hmm. And had empathy.
Exactly. That was part of when I was talking to the chiropractor today about ACE and other stuff. He was telling me when he was in his practice before, he had a patient that was extremely complicated, and he was having to do so much research to figure out what's going on. And finally, he's like, I couldn't do it. And he's like, she came in for her appointment and she was expecting me to have these answers from this research. And I just had to look at her and go, I don't know what to do. I really, really don't. He's like, I've been struggling trying to figure things out, and I don't have an answer for you. And I just kind of smiled, And he looked at me real weird. I go, I bet she hated hearing that. I go, but you know what? I bet she was okay. And he goes, yeah, it was weird. I thought I was going to just destroy her. I'm like, well, I'm sure she was really disappointed, but you admitted that you didn't have that answer.
Right.
And we can't get that from doctors today.
Right.
And he's like, well, that's what we try to do in this clinic. If we can't figure it out, we'll send you to somebody that we think that can, or we'll tell you we can't figure it out. And I'm like, you have no idea what that means, you know?
Most of them are just going to gaslight you. I mean, they're going to do it anyways, but if they don't know the answer, they're definitely going to be doing that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, well, it brings up something else we talked on the phone real quick, if we can get into it. How, and I forget this creator's name, and I'm going to have to tattoo it on my arm because I bring it up so often. She did a video where she talked about how the medical field draws in toxic people. And I was blown away because that is so true.
Yep.
It's honestly been true for the, hundreds of years that medical practice has been around. I've watched some documentaries recently, and it's just like nothing's really changed. It's just our perspective of trust in our doctors that's really changed.
Right.
Yeah. And it attracts them. She put it like bears to honey, because they, this sounds so crude, but it's true. They get off on people coming to them for help, for knowledge that only they can give.
Right.
Thank you for the corgi. The corgi butt is so cute. It's awesome. And they enjoy the feeling of power.
Right.
And control, whether they can help or not. They know that there's an endless number of people that are going to come to them for help.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, pardon me?
It feeds the narcissism.
Right.
It does. It definitely does. And that's one reason why it's so difficult for us to find different doctors. And because there's so many of these toxic people in healthcare, from doctors to nurses to PAs to
Social
whatever
workers.
you want. Yeah, social workers,
Some of the most unhealthy people I've ever met were social workers. And they think they're going to help everybody, but unless they've actually helped themselves, they can't really help others as well as they could. So
no, you can't. Now I got another one more thing, and you may not be able to answer this question, but just even from personal thoughts, this goes out to you too, Amanda, and everybody that's here. I hear a lot people talk about how they just want to be normal, and lately my question back to them is, what's normal? Mm-hmm. And they'll be like, well, my friends are doing this, or my friends are doing that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so you're taking society's definition of normal for you? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, what's your definition for normal for you?
Right.
Maybe instead of comparing our lives and our situation to what society says is where we should be, we need to set realistic what our normal is, and be able to accept that our normal is fucking good enough.
Yeah.
My normal, 4 showers a week would be a normal goal for me. Okay. Let's just put that out there. And that's something tangible for me. Was this a normal week, or was this a crappy week, or was this a good week and I got 7, right? I'd love to go horseback riding. I'd love to go dirt bike riding again, but I can't. And it's not my fault. My body's crapped on me.
Right.
So just opinions. I mean, is it?
I think a lot of it is normal in our minds is back before we had chronic pain.
Right.
It's what our life was,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and now we have a new normal, and
Right.
and accepting that is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody or talk bad, you know, because that's the last thing I would do. But I really, for myself, I'm trying to deal with my normal.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Right.
love to be able to go back and do what I was able to do,
Too.
but I can't. There's no way in hell I could go back to doing what we did in Vegas. So what's my normal? What's normal for me?
Mm-hmm.
And
What can you
that's,
do?
yeah. And I need to, for me, I'm really trying right now hard to meet my normal, because
Right.
it's something that I can judge if it's bad, or if I'm in a bad place, mind, physically, mentally, spiritually, or if I'm in a good place, or if I'm in an average place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we need to do both. But I hate seeing people compare themselves to lucky people who have this normal life, because it's going to be possible.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We have to kind of redefine our normal, because it's changed, and not worry so much about what society thinks, but I think it's more inside our head than society. Although there are people out there who will judge you, but they're going to judge you if you're in your old life or this life. You know, there's always people who are going to judge.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just accepting yourself for who you are now. I
Right.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. For sure. I talked about this a little bit in a video the other day, and I was talking about how I really thought about who I used to be. And I was in my early 20s when all of this happened. So I was pretty young, and I was going through a lot of stuff at the time. And then I realized I'm so much better today mentally, you know, able to cope with things and all of that. And I've grown so much.
Mhm.
I don't want to be who I used to be. I'm
Right.
glad that I'm here. Like it, even though I'm like enduring the suck sometimes with the pain and the sickness and everything like that, mentally, emotionally, I'm so much more mature, and I've grown so much from these experiences. I couldn't imagine going backwards.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, like people, oh, I'd love to be able to go back to high school. No,
Right?
no.
No, not at all.
Right.
Or my 20s. No.
Yeah, no, I love my 30s. I
30s are
didn't
the
think I
best.
would, but I have.
Mhm.
Right.
So, I don't want to end tonight on a depressing thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Said I don't want to end tonight on like a depressing thing, but I just wanted to bring that out because
Yeah.
I want people to know that it's okay, that their normal is their normal.
Right.
It's not the normal we would probably could have hoped for 20 years ago, but it's where we are, and be okay with it. We always constantly want to do better and feel better, but it's okay. Everybody's fine, you know. Just keep working, keep trying.
Yeah.
You know, don't
That
hold
doesn't
the
mean
fact
give
that
up.
I mean,
No.
even in our old lives, we had good days and we had bad days,
Yeah.
or in our own different ways.
Right.
Right.
Keep striving to make those memories.
In chronic pain life, we have good days and bad days with different definitions of that. So it's a
Right.
matter of perspective.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hate that. We need a victory. Somebody give me something good before we get off tonight, because I don't want to leave on a downer, because it feels like I just killed the whole good vibe in the whole room. Somebody throw me a
Miles
bone.
today.
You walked 2 miles today?
2 miles?
2 miles today.
That's crazy.
Had sitting jobs where I had to walk the beagles a mile twice today, so I was able to do it
Yeah.
though.
Y'all, I hit a button and I think I'm adding Judy to the conversation. Judy, you can talk if you want, or you can decline it. My chubby fingers hit the wrong spot on the phone. Sorry about that.
I don't think you meant to do that, did you? I'll fix you.
Okay, well, put your seat back on because I don't want to be in trouble. One causing problems there.
I'll listen to you guys. Thanks for doing
Thank you,
it, guys.
Judy.
Love you guys.
Love you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
I did that last night on the brief live. I did it felt like 20 times. I was just trying to scroll
Because
the
you're like
comments.
tapping on it, and then you tap on someone's name, right?
I don't know what I do. I have
All
no
the
idea.
time.
You know. So yeah.
Oh.
Well,
Kendra, Blue Whiplash, you got for
I
PT
Facebook
and
called someone with my fat
So-
chubby finger without knowing it. Yeah.
well. So Dana, would you have anything to say in closing? Because I need to go get some meds, y'all.
yeah, same.
The talk tonight is there anybody that has any questions? I'm
Right.
half blind, so I have to do this to actually see what people are writing.
I know. Who was it? They brought up a good topic, but I told them that would be a great topic for another live. Is what do we do when we no longer trust the medical system? And I know we've talked about that, a few times, but I think doing a live on that would be, because that's where I'm at, and it's
Yeah.
changed a lot of my perspectives for sure.
I think we're all there.
Yeah, we are, right? That'll be a single topic night for sure. So,
Right.
Amanda, do you have any parting shots?
I really appreciate y'all. We had, 30 to 40 some odd people in here tonight, and that was amazing. And I appreciate you guys sticking around and listening to us. And I hope that you guys got something out of this and that you feel seen and heard. And we love y'all. And back to
I want to
you.
say thank you. Back to you. Let's say thank you for everybody that was here for quite a while tonight. We had 40 people plus for a continuous amount, and that's amazing. Thank you all for keeping this a safe place for everybody that's invisible. That means the world to me, that we all have an opportunity to be seen, to be heard, and be safe. You guys hit 41,000 on the likes tonight, which I'm sure got us pushed out to the FYP page. I'm never going to hit 10,000 followers, so I'll never my lives won't automatically be pushed out there. So thank you all for doing that.
Don't underestimate.
We'll get there.
So, quick plug, Thursday night, Jolene will be on with her story, and we talked a little bit about what we're going to talk about on top of her incredible life story with her pain and her health issues. And that one ought to be a really good time. Ought to be really informative. So,
I did a Zoom with Dr. Mike today about urinary drug screening. That was pretty interesting. So we'll have to talk about that Thursday a little bit.
we didn't even get a chance to bring that up tonight. So yeah, because I want to know how that went. So,
Yeah.
but as always, y'all, if you have any questions, if you want to be on a Thursday night, send me a message. I probably won't respond tonight, but it'll be tomorrow morning when you guys are why we're here. This community means a lot to us. And if we can do anything to help you, just let us know. So you guys be safe, and we'll see you Thursday night. Peace. Bye.
Bye.